Welcome, 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 everyone, to another Native Paranormal Crossroads. We are joined again by the Paranormal Rangers, talking about unique, mysterious, and mystical experiences today. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Howdy.
This is our episode number 4. We have crossed a unique line of 4 episodes and 4,000 more to come. So let's just jump right into the subject today. What are uniquely mysterious experiences that can be called paranormal? What crosses the line to mystical? What's the difference between the two? And then what are some of the things we'd like to add to it when it comes to unique experiences that people have?
I'll jump right in. So I think for most people, when they think of something mystical, they're thinking about something that is out of the day-to-day routine that we all engage in. Yet, for John and I and Michelle, I think in our lifetime and in our careers, we've seen where uh, these activities and events that people refer to as mystical are actually all around us at any given time. And these things can pop up out of the blue and make themselves known. And so, so for us, I think that it can it can just happen out of the blue. You know, these things that John and I investigated as rangers under the Special Projects Unit. Um, we got in tune to these different phenomenon that were occurring, and were able to see the connections with what people refer to as mystical or supernatural. So I'll let my other partners jump in.
I think about the series, The X-Files, when I think about mystical, always trying to prove that the incidents that were occurring that were in a supernatural way, uh, you know, correlating to what normal life is about, seeing things in from the side of our eyes, mystically speaking, Native American cultures. Okay, so I had the opportunity to uh, sweat with a nation here in Utah. And what's really interesting, my spirit is really open after that particular sweat. And some might say that might be in a delusional state, but I have seen things from the other side of the world that is not a part of our world. An example of, one evening a friend of mine took me over to their farm fields and we were observing, and what I noticed was these little fireflies. Now, fireflies are not indigenous to that part of Utah. And what was really interesting is I looked more and more, and I was in a state of spiritual openness. And I'm not talking about the physical manifestation of being depleted of water or electrolytes or anything. I was in my right mind. And what was really interesting is I looked at these little fireflies type thing, because we all know what those look like, because we somewhere seen them somewhere in our childhood or our adulthood, somewhere where they're supposed to be. But this particular evening, and I got a closer look, and this particular mystical being had a humanoid body to it. And I was a little bit, whoa, taken back by that experience. But it did bring a feeling of excitement and elation, and seeing this particular, these beings flying around. And probably this is the first time I've talked about it this clear on this show. Um, most people would account to it, oh, you just saw fireflies, and they do happen to be in that area, so on and so forth. So we like to do a lot of interpretations. And the reason why I said it's a lot like X-Files is just finding the evidence, which sometimes you can't have that evidence. It just happens. And so that was my experience on that particular mystical night. And it was a full moon. You have to look at your environment element of, aspect of it. It was a full moon. It was night. It was still, it was peaceful. And that was my experience with that particular part of the Utah farmland that I was on. And it was quite an eye-opening experience, that those beings actually exist. And you hear about it in written lore or from people who have said, yeah, there's the little people, there's this. It depends on the nations you're dealing with. So that
There
was
are
my answer.
there are times you don't need validation from the external to have the internal mystical unique experience. And there's where some of these separation between fact and fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, what does it take for you to say to yourself, I'm not making this up? It's real to me. And that's what helps define the mystical experience just for you. You know you're not making it up. It is a real experience within you.
Your turn,
Exactly.
John.
Okay. I'll talk about an incident that happened to me. All of us experience, and everybody out there experiences this, what they call deja vu, where you dream something. And as you go along in your life, sometime later, uh, you'll run into a situation and suddenly you remember, I've dreamed this, even though you've never been to that place before or never been in that circumstance. And suddenly your mind says, I dreamed about this, so many months ago or weeks ago or whatever. And you'll be able to just momentarily have that feeling that you've been here before. Well, I've had these deja vu experiences all through my life. And they last anywhere from 6 months to a year later. I'll come into a situation where I'll say, I remember this. I've dreamed this. And in some situations, I'm somewhere where I never have been before. And it got to the point, just like any muscle, if you exercise it, it'll it'll be more helpful to you. And I got to the point where I could actually watch a deja vu scenario play out in front of me and just kind of watch everything and say, I know what's going to happen next, but I want to watch this. So, about, I would say 2003, 2004, somewhere around there, which to a lot of people is way, way in the past. But for me, it was just seemed like yesterday. I'm driving down the road. I'm in my tribal vehicle. It's a law enforcement pickup truck. So it's black. It's cool looking. It's got big stars on the side. Um, have all my radio gear and equipment in there. My rifles you know, and I'm driving home from work. My normal trip was a 250 miles round trip to go to work in the morning and to go home. And at the time, I was a single father with two kids that I had to get up and get ready and get to school. So I'm driving down this road. It's near a place called Burnside Junction on Navajo Route 15, and about maybe 5 or 6 miles south of that junction, uh, the road takes a dip. And as it dips down, it flattens out. There's kind of like a floodplain there, and then it goes back up. So there's about a quarter mile of this sunken road. And there's no fence line on either side. There's no right-of-way fence at this time. There is now. As I'm driving and I went down that dip, I had this realization that I've dreamed this dream before. In my dream, I can remember distinctly hitting a herd of horses. My vehicle goes off the road and rolls over. And now I'm upside down, hanging in my seatbelt. And the first thing that goes through my mind in my dream is, how the heck am I going to explain this? So that's what I flashed on. Right then, as soon as I realized that that was the same place in my dream, I let my foot off the accelerator momentarily. Because you something flashes like that and it startles you. And so I literally jerked my foot off the gas pedal. When I did that, it's getting dark. I saw a herd of horses run in front of my truck by just inches. At the same time, in the rearview mirror, I could see the same herd had split and the other half ran behind my truck. And next thing I know, I'm going down the road by myself again. And it was very startling. If you study religion, you know that there's something that they call predestination, that your life is pretty much mapped out, the direction that you're going to go, and all that kind of stuff. So I started thinking in terms of that. And what I came to the realization of was that it seemed to me that you were on a directional path, but that, just like looking at a half tube, you could be sliding down this thing, but you could move to either side a little bit, not completely jump out of that path, but it's just like sliding down a half tube. And in that case, I think what happened was that I was able to move to one side just enough to avoid that accident. And after all that, and I retired, I never experienced anything like that particular one before, since. So it happened in my dream when I was a ranger. I was in uniform. I was driving a marked police vehicle and came out of it okay. And just the realization was quite amazing, and did make me realize that there's something more to this existence than we give it credit for.
Just about everyone's had a deja vu moment in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And that right there is the connection that we all have had mystical experiences, unique experiences. And a couple times, maybe 2, 3 shows ago, we talked about the old days when the telephone would ring and we all had guess who it was, and somebody would always know.
Mm-hmm.
Mystical exists everywhere. It's the level of awareness you give it to how does it affect us. That story that Jonathan said, was a great effect on him, and he was able to come up with a greater philosophical understanding, just out of the way to stay on the timeline but not alter it. It's like if you walk into a room with your hat forwards or backwards, does that really change who you are? It might change the perception of a handful of people. He's wearing his hat backwards versus hat forwards. But still, what's going to happen is going to happen through the predestination or the karmic resolution that's going on for those unique moments.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still waiting to dream about lottery numbers, but I haven't done that yet.
I want to share a deja vu story again. I was with a friend of mine, and we both had deja vu at the exact same moment of 2 different subject matters. I had a deja vu about him having deja vu, and he had deja vu about a dream he had years ago about having deja vu. That has perplexed me for years. So a deja vu within a deja vu within a deja vu about deja vu.
Yeah, I kind of prefer Vuja Day
Vuja
when,
day.
yeah, when you get into a situation and you realize that you've never been there and never dreamed about that before.
Yeah.
Andrew, I also remember you saying to me when I was having predictive dreams, so I was dreaming maybe a few months or even years beforehand, and then the whole thing played out a bit like John was saying, that actually showed when it played out the same as the dream, it showed you were on the right timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that you were on your actual timeline in which your greatest manifestation was going to occur.
Okay.
And that's why you're having the deja vu or the precognitive dream force showing you the line to your right timeline.
Hello, everyone. Hey, guys.
Hi,
Hey,
Dale.
Dale. Welcome.
How are we doing? You all right? Hello, hello.
Very good.
Good.
So I
Hello.
want to delve into the difference between religious mystical experiences and standard paranormal experiences. Can we define them as different, or are they the same thing seen a different way?
When you say religious, does that include spirituality or spiritual?
Yes, yes. It doesn't matter what religion it is. Each has its own lens of acceptance.
It seems to me that we have a concept in our minds based on our background and experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and everything comes through. We have a tendency to use those filters to determine what we think happened. And if you are very religious, you're naturally going to lean that direction. I'm not saying one is wrong and the other is right or anything else. It's just human makeup and our psychological backgrounds of how we view things. Some people see mystical experiences and they get scared, they get fearful, and they don't want anything to do with it. Um, Others, they embrace it, and like I said, it's like a muscle. If you exercise it, you can achieve more and more that direction. We still don't know why.
You know, you
Well,
talk. Everybody talks about their dreams and the perception of their reality, and are we creating those realities in order to get answers? Whether it be our subconscious or our realities. And what's really interesting, I had a thought a couple days ago of whether or not to talk about this on the show. About a kind of an astral travel experience, and where I ended up at a friend's house. I won't tell you where I was at in the moment. It came in a very inopportune time, but I ended up in this particular person's home, and a friend, the same one I had the experience at their farm. And it was interesting because it was very painful to have had a physical manifestation of actually going somewhere else. And I was killing over in pain in my stomach, and I just was there. It felt like for a long time, but when I came back, it was like maybe about 2 minutes. And the reality, I was thinking about that, like, why hasn't that happened again? Am I really willing and open? What aligned up for me to have that sort of experience? What did I do? What did I eat? What did I where was my state of mind? And then I heard a podcast saying that sometimes you have to be in this very meditative state in order to have those kind of experiences. But I don't think at this point in time where I was in a position of meditation. It just happened. So it's like, Andrew, you talked about having somebody with you, having this state of the same deja vu. Mine was an actual leave my body and go somewhere else. So that was really interesting to me.
So when you have that happen, it's very similar when you took the wrong turn on the road and had to be in the right ancestral place at the right ancestral time and the right frequency of linear time for you to have an experience that you were contracted to have. And it's for you to go through the states of perception as what does it truly mean to the experiencing me? What
John
wisdom
has
can you
brought up
glean from it?
that,
But
it's very common for man to think in the terms of linear time. And I think in her experience, it shows that really a reflection that's not reality, and that at times we are at a point where there's a uh, maybe some type of stimuli or some type of trigger that can at certain points take us from where we're sitting at now in what we're doing in real time, and then all of a sudden take us somewhere else. And I think, like those people that are labeled clairvoyant and things like that, uh, I think people are able to, at certain points in their life, tap into certain abilities and certain mm, ways of connecting to the other side and other things. And I think in your situation, Michele, I think as I've gotten to know you, I think that you're very open minded, you're very understanding of a lot of what's in our environment and stuff. And I think that your background, I think you are gifted in a lot of ways. There may be a lot of things that you don't currently understand yet, but I think that will be revealed in time. And it's not something to necessarily be afraid of. It's something to want to learn more and more about.
What was so distinct about this experience when I went wherever I went in that moment? There were individuals in my dream that, people that I had known in my real life, but there was an 8 to 10 foot being there asking me to do certain directive things, and I refused to do it. There was like a boundary drawn, and I kept saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And, and so there was also a visitation there. And you often wonder, why was I being tested, first of all? Or, are there certain things by laws that we're not supposed to do, even in those states of where we're at? Either existence of reality, or that contract I was not supposed to do that. That's very perplexing to me. And, like Andrew, trying to figure out why that happened.
what I actually, what I said before, it was for you to find out and discover the free will journey of what wisdom can learn from it. Because it was an experience that has influenced you, right?
Yeah, I sometimes I don't fear it, but I sometimes think, okay, why hasn't that ever happened in my life, and why now?
Or why then?
Why then? Yeah, why at that particular time?
Because it's not about why now anymore. It's why then, because it's a past tense for you.
Correct.
Here's where the uniqueness of experiences changes as we get older. And as police officers, you guys know stories change, right? Between one interview and another, right? The same thing happens with our perception of the mystical experiences. We get older, we change our perceptions, our states of view. So much of spirituality is perception versus perspective. There's the perception of, and the perspective of it created that becomes evolving. And that evolving perspective can change our perceptions of it.
It's like
Which is, are we creating this reality?
And
Yeah,
that's it.
one of the other things that would happen to me too. Remember, I'd been a law enforcement officer for 31 years. My travel back and forth was 125 miles one way. And I was a licensed EMT basic, uh, which is I was the only officer before or since to ever be licensed to for emergency medicine. And I would go home in the evenings, and they tell you in your academy training, if you're driving a set route back and forth, you set yourself up for an assassination attempt. So what I would do is there's about 6 different routes I could take to get home. Some are shorter, some are longer. And I would take different routes all the time just to change up the scenery and see some new country, so to speak. Every single time this happened, and I would pick a different route, there would be some need for my medical experiences. Um, there would be an overdose victim, there would be an accident, there would be, you know, whatever it was, some kind of medical emergency or police emergency. And it got to the point where I literally started saying, instead of me picking these roads, I'm just going to toss a stick in the air. And whichever way it points, that's the direction I'm going to go. Well, I started doing that and I started getting medical calls on the way through those routes.
Interesting.
And it got to the point where it was so common. Uh, you get this resigned attitude of, I'm just going to go, doesn't matter what route, I'm going to get stopped on the way. I won't make it home on time. And somebody needs my help. And so I always made sure when I'd use my medical kit that I would immediately take it in, get oxygen put in my jumbo D cylinder and get resupplied as soon as I could, or I'd raid the ambulance before they left for all the supplies that I used and the oxygen masks and everything else. And that became standard. So to this day, I'm actually happy now that I don't have to get called and go to these things because you haven't lived until you've been up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because you got a barricade suspect and you're stacked in the line of people ready to go in with the SWAT team because you're the medic and you're busting in the door and going in and capturing the guy before he can wake up and grab a gun. So, I'm kind of glad that I don't have to do that kind of stuff anymore. But it taught me that no matter where you are, there's a reason for you to be there, and we can try to change direction and say, "Well, I don't want to deal with this," and it's still going to come right in your face and say, "No, you're needed."
And
So,
that is being of service both physically and spiritually. Being in service to the service of being a police officer is your duty and your job. But then there's the you throwing the stick, saying, I am in service to whatever direction spirit wants me to be in. And that's the unique crossovers that many law enforcement people have between the spirit world and the physical world. It's asking you to be of service to some potential future in the line of direction that you're traveling. And you have told spirit, I'm ready to be of service to whatever is occurring there. And spirit hears that service. And how often did it call on you?
well, more often than I would like to think, because today I have people actually come up to me and tell me, "You don't remember me, but you saved my life." And
And that's the
usually,
impact you made on your community.
yeah, it definitely had an impact. There's another
And
subject that I can bring up, but I'll let Stan talk about this one. We often talk about our sixth sense.
Well, I think that, like the experience you had, where there was the perception of deja vu, where the horses ended up crossing in front of you. Another way of looking at that might be that it was a sixth sense, an internal sixth sense that influenced you, to let off the accelerator in that particular situation. The other thing could be you and I, John, uh, and Michelle, clearly have the understanding that we have these, some people refer to them as spiritual guardians, some refer to them as ancestral guardians. And John and I know, have got in touch more with these uh, spiritual beings or angels, whatever you want to refer to them as. But maybe in that particular situation, it could have been guardians that were watching over you, that seen this hazard or threat ahead of you, that influenced you to let off the accelerator. So there's a lot of different things that come into play in a particular situation. Some people have this idea that everything we do and everything we've done is like a recording on a. Some of you may remember cassette tapes, where you would make a recording and you'd be able to play it back and in a linear form. But um, some people have the idea that what we're doing, it's already played out and we're simply going back and forth. Um, so there's a lot of different ideas and a lot of different thoughts along that realm. There are actually, when it comes to memory, there are actually people here on this earth that actually have retained every single memory going back to the time of their birth. So that's, and I think in reality, we all have that kind of ability with our memory. It's just, again, like these gurus and people like that seem to have special gifts. Again, I think we all have that capability and abilities. It's just we have never learned the procedures and techniques to be able to tap into these things. Even like self-healing, I think we all have those abilities to completely self-heal our body from every single ailment that or injury that could happen to us, simply by the use of our mind and frequencies and these other things. Anyway.
Well, when we were filming up there in Santa Fe, we had dropped off the producers and the cameraman at the airport and making our way back to Salt Lake. As we were passing Los Alamos, a very, very well-known area for the atomic bomb, it was interesting. I was looking through the windshield and it looked like a huge street light. I go, wow. And I made a comment, boy, that's a big street light. And as we approached it, it went in a V-like way and just went off like a drone. And I thought that was really interesting because of the subject matter we had filmed about, in our investigations of Bigfoot. And I kept thinking, and both of us saw it, the driver and myself saw it. And we were like, wow, that was pretty for us. It was normal because we have had phenomena show up in that way, and we think, okay, who's watching us now? Was it us or was it them? So you start to ask these questions. That is a mystical experience, whether it's the United States government or us, or them, the ETs, and so to distinguish that, that's kind of been the mystery of the experiences that we're having after we had these experiences in filming that you guys had with us. We were but we weren't shaken up by it or anything. We just thought it was okay. Here we go again. Having done that special investigation, and here we are having a phenomena experience with that orb or whatever that thing was. It was huge. It was like a huge drone, but its movement was so quickly, and it left, where we couldn't capture it on camera or anything. And I tried, but it was so quickly experienced. So,
Yeah.
that's what's been really interesting about having these mystical experiences.
And some mystical experiences are for one person in the group, and the other people in the group don't see it. On another
True.
podcast, we talked exactly about that.
Very true. There's been times John and I have been out in the field with others, and I'm able to pick up on sounds and even voices and messages from something that's unseen, and I can have somebody standing right next to me, and they don't even pick up on that. They're not able to hear that, even though I perceive it just as you and I are sitting here talking to each other. So yeah, it's interesting like that.
I had an experience which was probably about 6 years ago. I did Reiki training all day, and I had like a fire ceremony on the night, like a community one. And all of a sudden, as I finished the Reiki training, I saw an ancestral being like show itself in the physical. I could see this energy, and it followed me around all night. And I was like to everyone, I couldn't actually see anymore. All I could see was this being in front of me, and I was trying to talk to people. And I was like to everyone, "Can you see what I'm seeing?" They're like, "None of them, nope." And it was just there all night. So yeah, it's interesting.
It's also interesting that even the use of electronic equipment, let's say an electronic recorder, digital recorder, there's times that in investigations you can be utilizing a digital recorder, and it's able to pick up messages and sounds that we're not hearing in real time with
Right.
our own ears. And the same goes for certain types of camera equipment. And whether you're using a Polaroid camera, 35 millimeter camera, or a digital DSLR, or whatever it might be, there's times that that equipment can pick up manifestations and images in things that we don't even see with our own physical eyes. We know that at times animals around us, cats and dogs and even eagles and things of that, have beyond human abilities for these senses. But at times, yeah, equipment can pick up these things that we can't even hear with our own ear, or in that moment, we don't hear it.
And that's a perfect segue to talk about the paranormal training class you guys are going to be having come in June. Laura,
Yes.
you want to give some of the details?
Yeah, sure. I was actually just going to ask John, Stan, whether that's some of the equipment you could bring with you, because that would be amazing. But we are now going to be in York from the 6th to the 14th of June, and the Paranormal Rangers will be holding a 4-day event. While we hold the combined event, they'll be doing their 2 days in class in seminar in the hotel, and then 2 days out in the field. Part of the package, you'll be getting a range of equipment that you can use. They'll show you how to use, and you can take it out in the field, and they'll train with you. So they'll be there with you. We're doing deathly dark tours of York, day 3 and 4. So that will be going around York, one of UK's most haunted cities, and an evening in a building, one of the most haunted buildings, with deathly dark tours and the Paranormal Rangers. So it's going to be a very exciting time, guys.
It is.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Look,
when you guys sign up for the tour as part of the Paranormal Rangers class, You will get a thermal camera, a night vision goggles, a body cam that can do video, audio, and video, and a trimeter. All of those tools are yours to take home. A $700 value in technology just for coming to the class by signing up and coming to it. You get this technology to take home and learn to use and apply it to your daily life.
Please jump in there and join us.
Yeah.
It's going to be an amazing event.
Joel, do you have a link you could put in the chat, perhaps? And then if anybody wants to have a look and sign up, it's on my website and Andrew's website. So it's on twofeathersmedicine.com. That will take you to combined healing. And also there's a sign up page on Andrew's website. If you have any problems, just email me, laura2feathers@gmail.com. We're really excited. This is going to be amazing having the Paranormal Rangers over in York. For the first time in York. I know they've been to Scotland before, but their first time in York. So we're going to have fun.
So, in alignment with the technology, how does a Trifield meter work, and what will it tell you if somebody's having an experience in front of them?
Well, I'll lead in on that, and then I'll let John take over. For the use of the Trifield meter, we know that in our environment, almost everything gives off certain electrical energies and frequency. And in the use of that device, it's commonly used, let's say, in the electrical field, where you're constantly in an environment where there is, in some way, electrical systems are being affected. And you use that device to be able to actually detect and measure these frequencies that are occurring. And whether that's with gigahertz or different settings or readings within that particular device. So in respect to paranormal investigation, we know that a lot of the encounters we have that are deemed paranormal phenomena, or whether it's hauntings or orbs of some sort, or even otherworldly beings, they manifest or give off certain energies. And in them doing that, you're able to use that Trifield meter device almost as an extension of your own senses. Because we talk about that gut instinct that we all have. And some people are more in tune to that sixth sense than others. But that Trifield meter, in effect, is an extension of you to be able to read the environment and see these fluctuations and determine what is background energy, something that is a part of that environment all the time, as opposed to something that may be a presence of some entity or some other form of being. So I'll let John jump in there.
Yeah, the Trifield meter measures alternating current gauge meter. It can also see AC electric field meters and radio power densities. And so these are all electromagnetic fields, or EMF. Where that comes into play, the most known thing about it is if you watch the series Skinwalker Ranch. And they are seeing, using this meter, they are seeing a 1.6 gigahertz frequency that's reoccurring every time something unusual happens. Now, we've gone out with the Beyond Skinwalker crew, and they've used that same meter and found similar readings. That 1.6 gigahertz popped up again in a different location. Just so everybody understands, 1.6 gigahertz is a frequency specifically devoted to space to Earth communications or U.S. spacecraft that are shot, say a moon mission or something with a crewed capsule. And they will communicate back and forth on 1.6 gigahertz. So there is nobody else supposed to be on that frequency. And yet we see huge spikes occurring where something is being broadcast or something is being received within that frequency when paranormal events take place. So it just gives you another tool for your toolbox, so to speak.
Can I speak on a story that I had that experience with an EMF detector? I was in the Uinta Basin with another participant, and it was interesting because our environment around us had gone completely silent. And fortunately, I had one of these EMF detectors, and I put it on, and the spectrum went all the way up to the highest level. So what I understood from that reading is the radiation levels went up, and that's one thing Jonathan did not mention is when we have these kind of experiences, usually a phenomena experience occurs within that field, and the communication, to your point, Jonathan, occurs with the individual in your environment. We had dead silence, but I was picking up the highest spectrum on this EMF device. And so I took photos and I sent it in to Dr. Sagala, and sure enough, we heard in the background a call of a moose, which is now associated to a Bigfoot, the sound of a Bigfoot experience. And we heard that, and then but we couldn't hear the nature around us. There were birds, there were uh, dogs around, and it went completely silent, but we were picking these high levels of readings on that spectrum. And what's really interesting is we call it the zone. We get into the zone, and then these phenomena start to occur. So that's the importance of registering with electronic devices that pick up these signals, is you're going to have an experience when your EMF levels go up. And that's what Dr. Sagala, being on our show last week, he was saying that either we're creating it and our environment's changing around us and we carry that frequency within us. So that's something we need to explore as we investigate and teach people how to investigate that and to be ready and not fear the phenomena.
Exactly, not fearing that phenomenon. It's such a key terminology you'll hear over and over on this podcast.
Yeah, and just so everybody understands, this equipment generally is not cheap.
No.
I have a set of PVS 7 night vision goggles manufactured by IT&T. In 1991, they were $7,500. So night vision equipment, the technology has come a long way. We didn't carry Trifield meters and things like that because at the time they were too expensive. And me and Stan had to buy a lot of our own equipment. And if you understand, our jobs, we didn't make that much money. The draw for me was that there was a lot of adventure. There was a lot of interesting things to do, rescues and everything else. And so that always kept my interest up. But if I was in it for the money, I don't think I could have made a living, just doing that day by day and expecting to buy a whole bunch of stuff. I like to joke around about it, but at the time, I would take $40 every 2 weeks for my lunch money. And what I would do is I would hold on to that money because there was something I wanted to buy, but I'd have to save a month and a half worth of $40, you know, to make $120 to buy what I wanted. And so when you're on a budget like that, you tend not to spend a lot of money on equipment. We found body cams. Back then, they were just little bitty things that stuck in your pocket. And we wore those. I think we were probably one of the first officers in the United States to actually carry body cams on us. And believe me, it actually helped in several instances, especially with interviews that were complex, when you could play it back and hear what was being said. Now, the one you're going to get in this training is a 4K body camera. Most TVs and stuff will run at 1080p. 4K is ultra high definition. And so you're going to be able to pick up a lot of things. I mean, I'm able to wear it outside, and if a shooting star goes across the sky, I can go back in, take that card, and watch it on TV and see that shooting star.
With that, guys, we're going to call it an end to our show today. We have had this is episode number 5. The beginning of the show, as I said, it's episode number 4. If you guys are interested, you guys go to the Paranormal Rangers website. Joel will put up a QR code and a way to get to the website. This has been an incredible show, and we will be back next week, everyone, for another show. All right, guys, have a great day. Wonderful talking to all of you, and we look forward to growing this community Please share this video and put a like and a comment in any of the spots you're watching. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.